Hello chess friends and welcome to Yazarov Chess channel and welcome back to our little computer chess world. Welcome back to our commented chess games played by computer series. So in this series we're following some great games that were played recently on these three great chess websites. We have the CCRL official, we have also the TCEC official, and also the chess.com computer chess championship website, in which you can really follow some great games that were played by top engines, and you can also download the PGNs and maybe analyze some great games for yourself. The links to the great websites will be in the description below. Please check them out. I think these websites are really awesome. So today we're analyzing a great game played by Stockfish 14 against another top engine Rubichess in the Pelikan Lasker Sicilian. I think the Pelikan Lasker Sicilian is really something worth to study, because sometimes in chess, when we start to play chess and we want to have a decent repertoire, it's really hard to find a good opening from black's perspective, and also to find a good repertoire maybe as white. So the Pelikan Lasker Sicilian, I think, is a great opening if you want to study something from black's perspective. Magnus Carlsen played this opening very often against Fabiano Caruana in the World Chess Championship in 2018. So if you have trouble maybe to find something good as black, please check out the Pelikan Lasker Sicilian, and I think you will not make a mistake. But okay, we're analyzing now this game a little bit more from white perspective here. As I said, a great game played by Stockfish against Rubichess. Recently we have covered already two great games by Stockfish and Rubichess in the Pelikan Lasker Sicilian. Today, with a different sideline, I'll show you of course what's the main difference between this line that we're analyzing today and the line that we have studied before, because the ideas of these lines are a little bit different, but again with some similar strategical elements of the backward pawn on d6 and also about this weak square position on d5. But we'll come to that point of course now in the continuation of the video. So let's check out now the game. Here e4 played by Stockfish. We have now c5 by Rubichess, knight to f3, knight to c6, and after d4 c takes d4, knight to d4. We have now the open Sicilian. Now comes knight to f6, which is, I think, a great move, because many times in any Sicilian we're already showing our cards. That's, I think, I've mentioned it before. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I think we should notice this about the Pelikan Lasker Sicilian. Here, many times in any Sicilian, black is playing maybe a6, e6, g6. With these moves, black is basically showing the cards in which Sicilian black is going. But when you play knight to f6, still you have a great flexibility to go into these lines. e6, still you can play a6, you can still play g6, but so far you are not showing your cards, you're not showing your opponent that you're maybe going into the knight dwarf. Still you can go into the knight dwarf, but so far we didn't play the knight dwarf, because now it's time for white to protect the pawn with the move knight to c3. Still you can play of course now d6 and the a6, and you will reach the knight dwarf position. You can play of course g6, then you reach the dragon Sicilian. Now in this continuation, the best move, which is also the normal move of the Pelikan Lasker Sicilian, is now the move e5. And after move knight to b5, it's obvious that of course we have here a huge positional problem. First of all, after move d6 we have this backward pawn on d6, but also a weak square here on the square, the d5. So that's why white has now basically two choices. White can go into these lines that we have analyzed before with the move knight to d5, then black is pretty much forced to take knight takes d5, e takes d5, and similar stuff, then knight to b8 or knight to e7. We have analyzed these lines in our previous analyzed games. Now here Stockfish tries a different continuation. Stockfish tries a battle for the weak d5 square. As we mentioned, there are two weaknesses in the Pelikan Lasker Sicilian. First of all, the backward pawn on d6, but also the weak square on d5. So that's why when we're battling for the square, like the square d5, then we want to take every piece away that is protecting that square, and it's obviously first of all the knight on f6. So that's why here one of the best continuations is also to play the move bishop to g5. So in my opinion, there are basically only two good moves here for white in order to continue the pressure: knight to d5 immediately, or bishop to g5 in order to attack the knight which is protecting the square d5. So here after move bishop to g5, we have now a6 by Rubichess, knight to a3, and here b5 immediately at threatening here the move b4, so that's why now comes the move knight to d5, and here after move bishop to e7, this is now a very often played position. Here after moving bishop to e7, again white has basically two choices. White can go bishop to f6, or will play probably in many occasions also the move knight to e7. After knight to e7, here knight to e7 is the most popular way, and here bishop to f6, and after g takes f6, this position is playable for both sides. The engine gives here equal chances. There are many great games for white and for black. First of all, what we can notice in this position is that again black is left a little bit with his weaknesses on d5 and f5, but this weakness can be improved by the potential d5 and f5 move by black. Black has now a really nice central pawn storm, so this is, as I said, also a good position here for black. So that's why after move here bishop to e7, here Stockfish went with this move bishop to f6, and again there are now opportunities. G takes f6, bishop to f6. The best way is simply to play bishop to f6, and now comes c3, because obviously also the move b4 was a serious threat to kick away here the knight from a3. Then black could have really a great expansion on the queen side, so that's why c3. And you see now the knight here on d5 is really a great piece. It can only be kicked away by the knight on c6 and also by the bishop on e6, but meanwhile if this knight gets challenged, still we can play sort of a maneuver. We can play knight to c2 and then knight to e3, where again we could have another piece which is controlling the d5 square, and with the support of the pawn, with the support of the queen, the d5 is basically ours. It's our square that we have taken, and still we can continue then the pressure, of course, against this backward pawn on d6. So okay, black has the advantage, of course, of the bishop pair, but it's not so easy to play now with the bishops because of this positional weakness on d5 and also this backward pawn on d6. So every position, I think, in chess has its weaknesses, has also its advantages, so that's why here I think both players can hope for some good continuation. So here after move c3, bishop to g5, here Rubichess is trying to stay with the bishop pair on the board, is at least taking this diagonal, but many times when I've played also this Pelikan Lasker Sicilian from black's perspective, I had troubles where to go with this dark bishop. It's okay, it's developed now, it's aiming into something, but actually it's aiming into nothing, because it's aiming into air. There's no piece that this bishop is attacking, so the only thing that white needs to do is simply get out of the range of the bishop, play something like rook to d1, bishop to e2, maybe knight to c2, casting, and you see the bishop, okay, it's developed, as I said, but it doesn't have any good attacking opportunities. So here after move bishop to g5, in the continuation we have now this move knight to c2, knight to e7, and here h4 immediately by Stockfish. It's a very pragmatic idea to use this bishop as an object of the attack. Even if you would have played castling here before, it's not a problem. Still we can play h4, because this pawn can never be taken because of this tactic, queen to h5, and you lose the bishop, because here there's simply too much pressure on the h file. This is something also that you should know, and you should notice in this Pelikan Lasker Sicilian, the tactical trap here on the h file. So that's why after move knight to c2, as we said, knight to e7 was played, h4 anyway, we have bishop to h6, and now a4. a4 is also a very popular move here from white's perspective, because the main advantage a little bit also is here that the black has here the space advantage on the queen side, so that's why this space advantage has to be broken, and now it's white that's actually attacking here the queen side, because there are also some threats of 8x b5. After 8x b5, here the rook could be hanging, so that's why here we have b takes a4, now knight to b4. You see these knights are really wild, because again we want to simply occupy the d5 square. If you play knight to e3, then I think bishop to e3 will be taken immediately. After knight to e3, then casting, and maybe prepare d5 pawn breakthrough with bishop to b7. Maybe this is something that white should be careful, because if black manages to improve the position with pushing the pawn on d5, then black could have a decent game. So that's why here knight to b4 still playing a little bit around. As we said, knight to e3 could be maybe taken. That's why knight to b4 if you want to take it now. Then again we're occupying again with the new piece, the weak square on d5. So here bishop to d7, knight takes e7, queen to e7, and now knight to d5. We have queen to d8 because knight to c7 was the threat. We have now rook to a4, and here I see also in the database a great gameplay by Karyakin against Teimur Rajabov. Sergei Karyakin destroyed really Teimur Rajabov in this, especially in the same position that we have now with the move rook to a4. In the continuation, Rajabov took bishop to a4, queen to a4. The problem is now queen to d7, covering the king is not an option. Here bishop to b5 is the tactical threat. If you play something like, of course, 8 takes b5, then you lose simply the rook. You cannot play, of course, queen to b5 here, then you get simply knight to c7. If you play, let's see, this continuation 8 takes b5, we take, then you have to cover, takes, and now with king to e2 and the rook to a1, white is much better. First of all, white would be faster to occupy this open file, and still with this knight on this, in the center of the board, it's of course much better than the bishop here. This is now weak pawn here, so it's, I think, a strategically lost game. The engine, for instance, gives here already a +3 position evaluation here for white. So that's why after move rook to a4 and bishop to a4, queen to a4, black would be forced to play a very unpleasant move, king to f8, and that's actually the position between Sergei Karyakin and Teimur Rajabov. In the continuation of our Pelikan Lasker Sicilian, we'll analyze this game for sure. The main goal now in this position is to play here simply b4 b5 to open the position on the queen side. That's actually the main issue here, and Sergei Karyakin won the game with great strategies, with great pawn breakthroughs. So as I said, we'll analyze also in the continuation of our Pelikan Lasker Sicilian this great game between Karyakin and Teimur Rajabov. So after move rook to a4, we have now a5, we have now b4 casting, and now b5, simply pushing through. Even if black would have taken here the pawn on b4, nothing dramatically changed, because rook takes a8 here. That's the main tactical threat. Again, this fork on c7 is simply working, so that's why you have to be patient here. After move rook to a4, here b4 as we said, and now finally casting b5. That's now, I think, a huge positional problem now for black. White is now a dominant position on the queen side. White has created now a pass pawn, and the cool part about the pass pawn is that it's supported here by the Lasker bishop. Now even c4 is a possibility where we could connect maybe both of these pawns, because as I mentioned it before, this bishop on h6, it is developed, it is aiming into something, but as I said, it's aiming into air. It's not attacking anything, although it occupies a very important diagonal on the board, but it's, as I said, simply not attacking anything. Meanwhile, white's pieces are much better. The bishop is here, the knight is centralized, so great strategical play so far by the fish. So rook to c8, we have bishop to e2, bishop to e6, rook to c4. By Stockfish tries to simplify the game by trading off more pieces and then going into a favorable endgame with this pass pawn on the b file. We have king to h8, rook to c6. That's a great move again by Stockfish, because if you try rook takes c6, then b takes c6, and even if you try f5, we can play b takes f5, bishop to f5, but now with queen to a4, this pawn is again so annoying. After a move something like c6 can happen, bishop to a6, then c7 c8 is also now an opportunity. So I think this pass pawn on the c file is simply too much to handle here for black. So here after move rook to c6, we have now g6, bishop to c4, queen to e8, queen to a4, and here after queen to d8, finally b6. A great move. You see this pawn is getting more and more annoying. Black has now really huge problems to stop this progress of the pawn on the b file. Here in the continuation, we have bishop to d7, rook takes c8, queen takes c8, and now queen to b3, queen to c5, and now finally casting here by Stockfish. And okay, black can of course play the blockade here with the move rook to b8, can stop at least for a while this progress on the b file, but the problem is, I think, also a little bit now the f7 pawn, and also in some occasions we could also try maybe as a long-term plan to open the f file somehow, not immediately, but maybe with g3, king to h2, then f4, maybe this could work. Then maybe if the f file gets open again, also to continue our pressure against this square f7. So okay, as I said, black can maybe defend this position, but the activity again of white pieces is much better. Look at this bishop on h6. I'm pointing out that in the Pelikan Lasker Sicilian, the dark square bishop is always a huge problem. First of all, when it is on e7, then it's blocked out by its own pawns. When it gets on this diagonal, then it doesn't have anything to attack. So it's a huge always strategical problem, this bad bishop here. So rook to b8, as said, blockade idea here against its pawn on the b file. Queen to a2, we have bishop to c6, rook to b1, and now king to g7. If you take bishop takes d5, it's not so good. We have bishop to d5. Okay, you can maybe take out this pawn, but now rook to b6, but now you lose this one. And I think when you have lost this pawn, then queen to e6, queen to e8 could be very annoying. The bishop has to come into the game. The queen has to be always a protective piece in order to protect the back rank. So that's why here it's a better activity, of course, again for white. White can cement the position with the move bishop to d5 and sneak in with the queen on the back rank. So here g3 play by pardon me, from rook to b1, king to g7. Here Rubichess didn't take out this knight and then didn't take out the pawn. Played now a securing move here, king to g7. We have g3, rook to b7, and now king to g2. Both engines are first improving the position of their kings. f5, we have now rook to b2. Again, bishop to d5 is not working anymore. Now it's even worse, because after bishop to d5, what we can notice now after move f5, now even the 7th rank is a huge problem, because if you take now rook to b6, then you get queen to a4, and you cannot protect this position anymore. It's really wild stuff. So if you take now, then you get here simply queen to d7, and it's game over. You have to move your king somewhere, and then after queen to f7, it's checkmate. If you try here something else, if you try king to h8, then you get again a new check, and here again queen to g8 would be a new checkmate. So that's the main issue. After move f5, you have left a little bit your 7th rank unprotected. So that's why Stockfish realizes, of course, this tactical problems. There's no good way for black to simply take out the knight and then take out the bishop. This tactic is simply not working for black. So rook to b2, we have a4, rook to b4, we have queen to a5, and now g4. This is a brilliant move by Stockfish. Stockfish is now opening the king side. As we said also in the middle game, that this could be an opportunity to somehow open the f file, open the g file, because the rook is a little bit stuck here, and in order to protect just one pawn, and when the rook is playing like this, then the rook is not protecting anymore the king. So it's now a huge problem, and Stockfish realizes this cool strategy. Plays now g4, f takes g4, queen to e2. Now this pawn is hanging. We have a3, and now queen takes g4. We have queen to a8. If we try now maybe a2, this would be a great continuation. If you try to maybe promote here with the move a2 and then a1, it's not so good, because you get simply queen to e6. The problem is now if you promote the queen, then you get queen to f6, and now you get a brilliant checkmate with a double check. Knight to e7 would be an immediate checkmate, where you have the checkmate by the bishop, but also by the knight, and this square is taken. So it's a beautiful checkmate. So after move here a3, as we said, queen takes g4. We have now queen to a8, so a2 so far is not a possibility. We have knight to c7, the attack, queen to b8, bishop to d5, bishop takes d5, and now knight to d5. Again, we have reached this brilliant octopus knight. This knight is on the life board. This knight cannot be kicked away by any minor piece. Again, we have now a knight versus bishop endgame, sort of, in which of course the knight is much better. The evaluation is already +4 here for white, although it's the same material, but the activity of white's pieces is simply much better. And many times that's exactly our goal, what we want to get in the Pelikan Lasker Sicilian. We want to get our octopus knight, and then, as I said in the beginning, we want to get rid of any piece that can defend the d5 square. In the beginning it was a simple strategy. Now we have accomplished that. The knight is on the slide square, the bishop cannot kick away the knight, the bishop is out of game, we have a passer, the king is naked, black's king is endangered. So a really brilliant positional game here by the fish. So rook to f7, we have rook to a4, bishop to c1, h5, we have queen to d8, h takes g6, h takes g6, knight to c7, rook takes c7 here. Rubichess didn't want to tolerate anymore this annoying knight on c7 here. We have b takes c7, queen to c7, and now rook to a8, we have queen to e7, queen to c8, king to f6, and now queen to h3, and after a2. In this position, Rubichess resigns. So what to do? Of course, it's a much better position for white. White can always deliver some checks on the back ranks, can also include the rook into the game. So a2 is not an opportunity. This pawn will be taken. So brilliant strategical game here by the fish. So as I said in the beginning, let's go back. Let's make a fast run of the game. After move bishop to g5, we have said we're attacking every piece that's protecting the d5 square. So all of these pieces we want to get rid of the knight, of this knight, of the bishop. And then Stockfish exactly did that. So you see, after trading off these pieces, then after h4 bishop to h6 was played, and then in the continuation of the game we have reached this position, which was really incredible. Here it was a brilliant octopus knight. All of the pieces were taken, and here black is basically strategically lost. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I hope that you realized this possibilities of the Pelikan Lasker Sicilian for both sides. We will analyze this opening more and more. I'll cover in the near future also the great gameplay by Sergei Karakin against Temur Ajabov in this particular line, where the exchange sacrifice was possible, then creating this very annoying pass pawns on the queen side. As I said, I promise you we'll analyze this game for sure. I hope also that you enjoyed this game. I think all of these basic principles of this opening were applied. Brilliant strategies here by the fish, and I really enjoyed the game. So if you want to study more of this Pelikan Lasker Sicilian, please check out my series so far. We have also covered many great games so far in this very cool opening. And if you want to see more chess engine games like Stockfish, Alpha Zero, Lila C0 games, here's my playlist, the whole playlist of our commented chess games played by computer series. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.